Okay. So my name is Jeremy Martin. I am an instructional technologist at 5 campuses. I work with Prairie View Elementary, Seven Hills Elementary, Chisholm Trail Middle School, Curtis Elementary, and J.C. Thompson Elementary.
And I'm Carla Reisman. I am the instructional technologist at Eaton High School and its special programs. Jeremy and I did one session before, and we actually learned a lot and added some things. So hopefully if you did join us for part or all of the previous one, you may get some new things out of this one as well.
And feel free to raise your digital hand. If you raise your actual hand, we might be able to see some of you, and we might not, because when we start sharing our screen, you'll see how it changes from 30 to 6 at the top. So just be aware of that, okay? You can also put questions in the chat, and Carla's gonna be monitoring that, and we'll get to them as soon as we can, okay? So I'm gonna share my screen now. Let me see, you know what, I'm gonna do this one first, okay? So right now, you should just really see what I see, okay? It's gonna look strange. I'm gonna open up our presentation on a different tab, and so you'll see that, okay? And what we're gonna try to do is toggle between our presentation and a live view, so that way you kind of get the whole experience, okay? If you need to access our resource, it's tinyurl.com/NISD Zoom, okay? All right, and we can see this, right? Yes?
Lots of nods.
Yes, all right. So it sounds like, so navigating and downloading zoom.us, okay? You are either here because you have a Zoom account and you want to learn more, or you said, I need a Zoom account and I need to learn more. So what we're going to do is we're going to navigate to zoom.us, and even if you already have an account, I suggest that you maybe open up a new tab. If you minimize or just hit escape on yours, because I think your screen probably went full screen. If you minimize, you should be able to see what I'm doing in a small window, but also be able to do this as well. So we're gonna open up a new tab and go to zoom.us, okay? And now I'm already logged in. I have my account, but you'll see two options. One that says sign in, one that says join a meeting. And so what that allows you to do is you can join a meeting without having an account, whether it's by putting in that, that meeting ID that someone sends you, or by clicking a link that, that someone has sent you in an email. But right now I want you to, if you have not signed up, click the sign up, and you'll click sign up with Google, or log in with Google. If you have an account, I want you to sign in, and then your screen, once you do all the things, should look like this.
To get to most of your settings when you are in the online version of Zoom, you just click on your picture and it'll bring up your account and all the menus that you need, which is what Jeremy just did to get here.
Absolutely. Okay, so what you'll see, and I'm going to toggle back to our presentation. So that's getting to zoom.us. We're going to take a look at your profile. Again, if you touch on your face, it'll bring you up to your profile, and I want to bring you up to the presentation quickly. So in that little window, if you escaped, if you touch on the square in the bottom right, I believe, that has an arrow diagonally, it'll pop you back into my screen. On this presentation, we have given you a link to update Zoom software. So if you wanted to download the client onto your computer, it's just a faster way to open up a new meeting. you're more than welcome to do that. Or you can just just go to zoom.us and work within. And the great thing about that is Zoom is web-based. So what that means is we can send a link directly via email, directly into Google Classroom, any way that we can send a link, and people don't need an account. They just have to click on that link because we are just having a virtual meeting. Yeah. All right.
As far as the settings you see there, when you click on your profile, this, like I said, you click on your picture in the top right to get to this menu. When you download the client software, there are a few extra features available. It's basically just a download that allows you to kind of expand that on your device itself. But when you are on the screen that Jeremy's on, you'll notice that you have profile, meeting, and I'm pointing at my screen like you all can see me. Profile, meetings, webinars, recordings. Most of you, when you're hosting with your students, will want to click on that meetings tab. And when you do click on that meetings tab, that's where we go to start scheduling meetings. And so we'll show you that in detail, but that's going to be kind of the first place you go. As far as your profile goes, you can add your picture, which is what you'll see if you turn your video off. You also have the ability to kind of, as he scrolls down, you'll see what you have access to. We have access to some premium features that unfortunately the free account does not allow. But right now Zoom is allowing, typically a basic free account allows for only 40 minutes, but that has been extended and that limit has been lifted on free accounts during this. And meeting capacity is different for the free account versus the paid account. And so you'll see some differences here between ours and yours, but most of it, you're going to see kind of the same information. Also underneath his picture, you'll see the personal meeting ID number. This is an ID number that is for you to post. Like if you wanted to have like an ongoing or repeating meeting with kids or people, you could post that link like to your Moodle page, for example. And anytime you have a meeting, the kids could just go and click on that link and it should open up as long as you are opening that up with them. Now, if you don't want it to be ongoing and you want individual meetings set up, you can do that as well. And we'll show you how to schedule those. But that's kind of like your ongoing link.
Yeah, we're going to talk about some different ways to stay safe and ensure safety and security. And like Carla said, posting this meeting ID, I did not post this link right here for you to join this meeting because when we share out this document, this is a link that will stay constant, right? So what I would use this for is I would put this on my Moodle page. So that way those students who are restricted to my page or who are enrolled in my course, and only those students can see my course, they would have access to that link. Okay, now it wouldn't be live until I joined it, right? But so that's one time when I would use my personal ID. Other times I would just generate a new meeting, and that way it goes specifically to who I want to meet with, and other people aren't able to just join in. Okay.
All right. Do you have that presentation pulled up?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. And so that pretty much talks about this top part, but we wanted to talk about when you are starting a meeting, you want to make sure that you address some norms and talk about some etiquette features.
And this is really for anybody, just kind of some tips to help you as you are participating in and hosting Zoom meetings and things to think about. The first one being definitely spending some time testing your connection and your technology before the meeting. checking that your background and your lighting is appropriate. One thing that has been brought up in several instances is making sure that when you're having like confidential meetings like ARDs or 504s, that you are in a situation where there, like for example, my husband is here behind me right now. I wouldn't have an ARD meeting or a 504 in the same room while he's sitting here if I could help that. And so making sure that either you're using headphones to protect privacy, or making sure that you're aware of what your surroundings are. Also making sure that when you're not speaking, you are muted, whether you think so or not. Background noise comes through, and it will typically kind of pull away from the speaker whenever that background noise pops through. One nice feature you have when you're hosting a meeting is that you can manually go and you can mute people if they cannot find their mute button. That microphone or mute button is in the bottom left-hand corner, but if somebody can't find it as a host, you can go in and you can click on that for them and help them with that. We do recommend work appropriate attire, of course. You don't want to be showing up in you know, like a tank top and shorts. But again, we're working from home and we're working remotely, so it's a little different than what we might normally see. Do make sure you try to like review what your agenda is, stick to that, be on time, use both audio and video when you can, and treat the camera as if it is a person that you're looking at when you're speaking and interacting, and making sure you're staying engaged and trying to limit that multitasking even in these virtual meetings. And finally, utilizing the chat and the raise hand features if you have questions that you need to ask, or encouraging your students to do that when you're hosting, so that it's a little easier to manage the interactions on the Zoom.
Absolutely. Off to the side, just other quick, an infographic, if you will, to mute yourself, utilizing that chat feature. We're going to talk about sharing your screen, and when you are the host, you have the ability to share your screen and also enable whether other people are able to share their screen as well. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. So we said that we would talk about safety and security, and this is kind of an ongoing discussion, especially now when everybody is starting to use Zoom. In fact, I think Jason Sanders used the word Zoom bombarding, like bombarding Zoom meetings, because what's happening is when you go to Zoom, you can say join a meeting, and notice that meeting IDs are just a combination of 9 numbers. And with everybody using Zoom now, people are just typing in random numbers and jumping in and just kind of taking over. So we want to make sure that that you're aware of that, and that there are some ways to navigate that. So send links to sessions out privately, meaning when we're scheduling meetings, you send that link to via email, okay? You can even require a password. So that means in that email that only that person should get, you also then include a password, so that way it's just another security measure. You can change the chat settings. Right now, we have it enabled so that you are able to chat with anyone and everyone in the meeting, whether privately or publicly. And that might be a feature that you decide to turn off, especially if you're starting to Zoom with students, because we want to manage conversations. And another feature in the settings is to turn off the ability of participants to join a waiting room. And the reason for that is they go to this black hole space of a waiting room, and when you start the meeting, you have to then go in and individually decide, do I want this person? Yes. Allow? Yes. Allow? Yes. And so that can just become cumbersome.
In addition to that, when you're considering the waiting room piece, there's also an option to allow them to join. And I think it's actually defaulted when you first set a meeting. So you want to make sure you turn it off to allow them to join before the host. When I'm hosting a meeting with adults, In a professional setting, I usually leave that on so people can join in and I'll jump in. However, with students, I'd probably turn that off. We've heard instances in neighboring districts where students have been in there before the teacher gets in there and they're sharing things that are completely not okay in that setting when they're unsupervised. So that is one thing we'll show you that you can turn off, is their ability to join before the host gets there to moderate.
Absolutely.
Other things you should think about, do make sure you understand that when you're using Zoom, anything you have is, whether it's video, whether it's a screenshot of those images, whether you've taken a picture of your Zoom on the phone. I've seen a lot of teachers all over the country who are Zooming with their kids and they're excited to see them. So they take a picture of that Zoom screen and then they post it on social media. Understand that we are still bound by the restrictions that we've been bound by all year. And every year when parents either authorize or don't authorize student images to be shared and publicized. When considering that, and even in relation to your coworkers, do consider avoiding showing faces or work online unless you have written permission to do so. And also, just for your own safety and the safety of the students, avoid hosting one-on-one meetings with students. There will be situations where you may need to help or tutor. Consider having a parent or an administrator in there with you. And make sure you give people a heads up that you are recording. And anytime you are recording sessions, if you want to use them later for instructional purposes, like we're going to use this one later so people can look at it later, make sure they're limited, the access to that is limited to only students in the course. So if you are Zooming, it's just like when you're recording that, it's just like if the kids are there one-on-one and working together in the classroom, but we don't want that necessarily available to everybody out there in the world. And so when there are ways in Moodle to restrict access to that video if you want to post it. And if you need help with that, your campus instructional technologists can show you that. You can also, in Google Classroom, as long as you're not sharing your Google Classroom code with people who are not enrolled in the course, you can post that in there.
Yeah. All right, so this next part, we're gonna show you now, and we're gonna talk about how to schedule meetings, but how we can also put some of those safety practices into place. So I'm gonna go to my Zoom.us profile, okay? And notice I can either go to the meetings section here, or it's already an option right up here to schedule a meeting, join a meeting, or host a meeting right now. So I'm gonna go and click on schedule a meeting, okay? And what it's going to do is I can go ahead and change the title. I'm just gonna change this to Zoom webinar 2, okay? And then I'm going to be able to choose the date, okay? Now, depending on how you want to communicate this with your, with whoever you are working with, okay? Notice mine says Outlook plugin for Zoom. I'm actually gonna click to download that. I should have done that earlier, but it's gonna be helpful for us, and let's see if it'll run for me. This will actually let me, in the moment, send an email. So I can choose the date, the time, however long. I would plan to have a longer meeting than necessary just because. And then notice there's an option for a recurring meeting, okay? If I know, and if I'm going to communicate with the members that I'm going to be meeting with, I might choose recurring meeting. For example, I am a member of the Dual Language PLC. And we are meeting every Thursday at 8 a.m. And so what the organizer did was she clicked recurring meeting, she changed it to weekly, repeat we're meeting for the next 6-ish weeks, and then you can set the date and the time and when to stop, okay?
Hey, pause right there for a second. We do have a question. Bridget, if you want to unmute yourself, feel free to ask.
It may be a moot point at this point, but another thing, and this was an issue for my daughter who's in Keller ISD, is you want to make sure you change your setting so that students can't share their screen also.
Mhm.
Because
Yes,
they might share
Yes.
something you don't want to share with everybody.
absolutely. And
And we will show you those settings here shortly, so you can kind of see.
yes.
Real quick, Donnie. There you go. Wait, try again.
So when you
Go ahead.
set up that reoccurring,
Mm-hmm.
does it create a different ID for each one of those dates? Or is it the same ID and we could just reuse that same ID?
Yeah, so let me actually show you. This is the email that I received. Let me just find it. Oh, here it is. Okay, so it will come in through this. Actually, I'm sorry, that's the wrong one because that's today's, but it looks like this. Yes. Okay, and so it's going to come in and all the dates. I think that this types it out, right?
Mhm.
And
Yes.
then we are going to click on this link. So it's right here. It's the same ID meeting, but what it does for me is it creates a new calendar invite on that day. It will update my calendar for every day that we're set to meet. And so
And it'll have, go ahead.
what I do to access that meeting is I just go to my meeting in my calendar and then I click on this link and I'm in that meeting.
And it will be the same meeting ID for each one of those that they've got set up and linked to that one scheduled reoccurring meeting. So so you can just share that one link with the kids if you have it set up for a recurring meeting once a week. As far as Mindy asked how to send calendar invites with different calendar platforms, I will tell you,
You know what?
that
I'm gonna show you that in just a second.
And-
Okay, so if it's not a recurring meeting, you can then generate automatically, or it gives you the option to use your personal meeting ID. So you can choose that. Again, I typically, if I'm just creating meetings, I will use this generate automatically. So that way, and if I've posted this on my Moodle page, students won't be joining my PLC meeting. We talked about requiring a password. Okay, this is an option, definitely, especially when using students. Notice it generates a numeric code. I can come in and I can say password. I mean, that's not super secure, but you can change the password to whatever you need to. And it may, I'm not exactly sure, I've not used that feature, but I imagine that when I click send the calendar invite, it will include that in there. Continuing down, some features that I like setting this up, when I'm the host, I want my video to automatically be on because that means that I have sat down and I've opened the meeting and I'm ready to go. However, I like to leave participants off because when they click,
you never know what they're doing when they open the
they
meeting.
may still be fixing their hair, you know, like scarfing something down, and it's just it's a polite thing to do to leave this off, and so that means they have to manually click join my video, and so that leaves no room for you were just trying to peep, right? So it's a safety feature for you. Okay.
Well, and do know that they will be prompted when they click on that link to join with audio and video. And so then they'll have to click that second button to make sure that's turned on.
Absolutely. Notice that this enable join before host is a default setting. I definitely, when you're, especially with students, would uncheck that, okay? And then as that etiquette feature, I would mute participants upon entry, so that way they can always unmute themselves and say hi, but if you don't and everybody joins at the same time, then you've got some like chaos to control. It's not impossible to control it at that point, but this is just kind of one of those safety or one of those nice settings to turn on. If you are going to record, you can set it to record automatically, or you have the ability as a host to record when the meeting starts. Okay, when I click,
I would also say on those other options before you go on,
okay,
you enabling that waiting room will require you to individually let them in for each meeting, and you can do that. But for example, we had a teacher working with middle schoolers, and she invited them all to the same meeting, so she was having to go in and individually accept one at a time, 100 and some kids into the Zoom meeting. And so if you're going to host a larger Zoom meeting, it's easier to not have that waiting room, and also making sure that only authenticated users can join. And that one allows or requires them to enter their credentials, making sure that it's them and you don't have bots trying to get in and things like that. So that's another option that is nice to have.
yeah. Okay, I'm gonna save this, and then we were curious about different calendar invites. So earlier when I downloaded the plugin, essentially what that did was it gave me this option now to link to my Outlook calendar. And so I like to use this one. If you have other people, like students using Google Calendar, you might send them this. But when I click on this, notice it creates a meeting down here, and I'm gonna double click that to open. And this is now an appointment. And notice it says appointment here because there's nobody else involved in this. Okay, but what I can do is there's an option to invite attendees right here, and I can click on that. Okay, now notice it says you haven't sent this meeting invitation, so we know it's a meeting because someone else is involved, and I'm going to type in whoever I want. So Carla Reisman, she's gonna get this invite, and it's gonna go to her. She can accept it, decline. I'm pretty confident that we've all gotten some kind of invitation like this, and then it'll go directly into her calendar for us to be able to use. And then I'm gonna just click send. Okay, so that is scheduling a meeting. You did talk about the different settings, and we're not gonna go through all of them now because there are a lot. But if you come here to your settings, for meeting settings, you can click here for recording settings, telephone settings. I would definitely take time to look through these meeting settings and just kind of scroll through and decide what do I really want to turn on, and what should I turn off that I don't want, because there might be some toggling both ways. Okay.
Mindy, you have a question?
Yeah, sorry to interrupt. I just
You're
would
right.
ask, can we send more than one? Like if we created that Outlook like you did for the calendar invite, could we do a Google invite as well?
Yeah, so let me show you this. And even, so let me come to this meeting. I've already sent that to Carla, and I say, oh wait, I should probably send that to Jason as well. I can come in, I clicked meetings, and this shows me anything that I have scheduled. I can come and edit this meeting, and now I can go and add a Google Calendar. I'll have to log in, but then, and that's linking to my calendar. It would let me, it would then let me add in a an invite to that calendar. But I can come in here too and create another invite and send it to multiple people that way as well. So I can do Outlook. I can go back and access that and go do whatever different type of calendar I need to.
Also know that what's nice about when you're scheduling meetings is you have the ability to save meeting templates. So if it's something you think you'll be rescheduling, you want the same settings each time, you are able to save those in a meeting template setting. So you don't have to think about resetting them each and every time if you have certain preferences you like to use.
Absolutely. Okay,
All right.
so we're gonna go on. We've gone through that. So now we're gonna really kind of start taking a look at the bottom task, the bottom bar on your screen. So you've got the microphone, which is your audio settings. When you click the arrow down right next to that, you'll see a list of settings. So where this is helpful is when you're saying, I can't hear you, I can't hear you, right? And you're trying to communicate either sign language or like, you might just prompt students to check their microphone settings. You might tell them to mute, to turn it off and then turn it back on. And sometimes that fixes it. But it might be, especially yours might look a little bit different. Right now I have my headphones in. So that's when I took a screenshot, that's why it says headphones. If I don't, you wouldn't see these headphones at all, right? Similarly, if you click on the arrow next to the video, you will see that you have different options. And you can even go into video settings directly in Zoom to check those out.
A few tips for hosting Zoom. If you have handouts or texts that you want the kids to be referencing during your meetings, do send those to them ahead of time, either through Moodle or email or whatever your usual means of communication is. As a host, I recommend signing into meetings 5 to 10 minutes early minimum so that you can be in there to kind of monitor. Obviously, you can set it so they can't get in there, but also that gives you time to check connections or troubleshoot if anybody's having trouble. Do make sure that when you start the meeting, you kind of remind the people there, students or coworkers, what the norms or expectations are for that meeting. Check your chat settings. If you look in your chat screen, if you look in the very bottom, like right above where you type the message, there are 3 little dots. And if you click on those 3 little dots, you have the option to turn chat off where the participants are not allowed to chat.
Actually,
You have
I'll show you that now.
Okay, and you have the option to leave it on publicly. You have the option to leave private chats on. That is totally up to you. For me, if I was working with students, I would either probably choose one of the top 3. I would not give them the freedom to private chat with each other, but that would be just my preference. But yeah, down in that bottom is where you're looking to change those chat settings once you get into that meeting.
And when you click on those 3 dots, you have the ability to save the chat. So if you said, oh man, he answered my question, I want to make sure I remember that. So I'm going to click on that, and then you can go from there.
Okay. And so if we go back to that,
The presentation. There we go.
too many windows.
Yeah.
We do recommend, if you are working with a larger group, assigning somebody to moderate, help you manage questions. It's nice if you have like a responsible kid or another teacher you're working with, having them kind of alert you when there's a question so you can pay attention to those. And then making sure when you do ask a question, making sure you're allowing wait time for answers. And also knowing that people need to find the mute button and be able to unmute themselves. So that takes a little time. It does ask as a host if you can turn off the student's video camera. You can. Can I let me share real quick, Jeremy?
Yep.
Share my screen.
Do you want to remote control mine?
Well, do you just want to, well, they can see it right now with what you're sharing.
Yeah.
So if you just look in the participant screen, as a host, you click that manage participants in the bottom.
Right here.
And then when you do, that participant screen that's on the right comes up. And he has the ability to click on either the microphone or the camera to turn those on and off. So if a student's being...
Yep, I'm going to turn off Carla's video, and that is her profile picture. Okay, and she should still be able to talk because our microphone is still on.
But if somebody's doing something they're not supposed to, and you need to cut them off from the rest of the class, you have the ability to do that. And then when he turns it back on, it sends me a message to say the host wants you to start your video again. And I can turn that right back on.
All right. So now we're going to go more in depth into the control panel features. The great thing is that we were trying to screencast our first one and it went blank and whatnot, but we figured out how I can show you what it looks like on the host side, because the host side looks a little bit different. Okay, I think that we all have the ability to invite someone currently, okay, and you can, when you click on that, your default comes up to here. If we click on default email, that's gonna pop open an Outlook calendar invite with the same meeting ID. So what this feature is good for is, let's say that I've already sent this email out and I said, oh wait, I really would like my administrator here and I forgot to include them. So I'm gonna email them this link and they can jump right into my meeting, into this current meeting, okay? So it's a difference of scheduling it, and then this is in the moment, having them join the meeting, okay?
Well, and we showed you, you don't have to go back to it right now, but we showed you on the Zoom web meeting, up in the options when you sign in, next to it shows host a meeting. If it, like, let's say I'm emailing with somebody and they say, hey, can we just Zoom about this? I can click host a meeting with video, and then I could just immediately send them that link and turn that on right then and there. So you can start one right away, you can schedule one, or you can invite people to an existing one that's already running.
Absolutely. So the manage participants, yours says just participants, right? And so what that allows you to do, you have different features. So yours says mute me, and yours says raise hand. So let's just practice clicking on that participants and raising your hand. And that way you can kind of see what it looks like for me too, as the host. So when you raise your hand, you can see that it brings you up to the top of my list. And so that I would be able to say, okay, Robin, what's your question? D Dykes, what's your question? Also, notice that if you have a hand raise, it puts a little hand in your Brady Bunch screen. So that way, if I'm looking at this view, I can see Taylor Song, you have a question, or Nick Kugias, you have a question, right? So it's a way, that's a good feature to get your attention. As a host, some newer features, and this might be a premium feature, is the polls. So we're actually going to skip that. But here's the share screen option. And I definitely want you to look at these options when I click on it. It says one participant can share at a time. Multiple participants can share simultaneously. That's where funny things can happen because you have multiple people sharing. But definitely looking at these advanced sharing options. And it says who can share. So this is what somebody reminded us earlier is, let's only let the host share. So that way students aren't trying to share their screen. And sometimes it is good. So I know that one of our remote math teachers, or she allows screen sharing, but that's part of her collaboration, right? So we want to be careful with sharing screens and like totally blocking it, because we don't necessarily want to stifle collaboration, right? Because if a student can show their thinking or what they are doing better than I'm explaining it, then I'd rather them share their screen.
And there was a question asked about having the ability to take a student out of a Zoom meeting. You do have the ability to remove them. So over on the right next to somebody, if you click on more, you can stop and start their video. Because I'm a co-host, he can't just kick me out, but he could withdraw my co-host permission and then kick me out. So if you pick somebody else, it should show remove.
Yep, so I can make someone else a host, I can make a co-host, I can assign this person to type closed caption, or I can remove you. Or if a student decides to rename themselves, because you have that option, I have the ability to go in and rename yourself, and then and give that stern warning. And with that stern warning, notice right now I am chatting, my chat is set to M. Harris privately. So what I would do is I would go and find that person privately and type the message, "Don't change your name." So it protects that anonymity, and it protects, we're always making sure that we're keeping our students and creating that safe environment. So that really actually covers the chat feature as well. Talking about recording, so notice I can pause or stop the recording at this point. Yours, when you enable it, it will be like a recording button, and then these options come. If you have the free version of Zoom, then you are going to, it will save to your local device. So it'll save to your computer. And the great thing about that is then you can upload it directly into your Drive, or, okay, let me just say this. With everybody now moving to remote learning, uploading videos, and this is gonna be, and someone asked a question at the very beginning, so this is a great place to throw this in, is uploading videos to Google into your Drive is awesome, but it's taking a longer time because everybody's trying to do it. But what teachers don't understand, or maybe they don't know, is that YouTube is a Google product. And so with all of our Google accounts, we all have our own YouTube channels. Until everybody starts to figure that out, uploading to YouTube is going to be a lot faster, right? They are meant to have those processing times to be faster. So in the chat in a little bit, I can I've typed out some steps on how to upload something to YouTube. You just go to youtube.com, initiate your account, okay, and then there's I'll list those steps in there. But that's,
and if you have trouble with that, you can definitely ask your campus instructional technologist, and we can walk you through that YouTube stuff. Let's kind of show the last part of this as far as the controls, so that we're wrapping up soon and they get to some questions.
Yeah. Okay. Here. Okay. So breakout rooms, let me show that real quick. And then when you are the host, if I wanted to put my students into smaller groups, I can assign different breakout rooms. And so maybe I'll put 40 participants into 5 groups. I can have Zoom throw you guys in automatically, or if I know that Carla really can't work with this person, I can manually go and assign. The thing about manually doing it is you have to go in and say, in group 1, I want this person, I have to go through the entire list. In group 2, I want these people. And so that's a little bit cumbersome, but you definitely know what you're getting. So that might be something you want to plan out before.
And you can also schedule breakout rooms ahead of time, and manually set them before the meeting. If you know how you want them broken out, and you as the teacher can pop in and out of those rooms to moderate and kind of see what's going on.
Someone said, are breakout rooms a free feature? I believe so, but they are only available to the host of the meeting. Okay, so you won't be able to see that right now. Okay, so that's pretty much all of what we wanted to show you as far as Zoom. We've got some resources on our slideshow that you'll be able to click on when you go back through that presentation. But why don't we go ahead and open up the floor for questions. So Michael Eisen. maybe unmute.
Chairman,
Yes.
I didn't have a question. I just had my hand raised earlier.
Oh, gotcha.
From when you asked.
Okay, so I'm gonna come
That was
and
it.
lower it. Okay, Nick, do you have a question? Or was that?
No,
from-
no, it was just to use the.
Oh, gotcha, gotcha. Okay, see Carrick? Nope.
Nope, I don't have anything.
Gotcha. Oh, all right. Okay, Rachel Greer.
Yes, is there a way to take a list of the participants that you have and copy that at the very end, or save that as a way of documenting who attended your Zoom tutorial meeting?
Well, very quickly, while we're kind of talking about this, you do have the option when you're setting up your meeting in your settings to automatically save the chat, as well as I believe it also saves out participant window. In the chat feature where we showed you how to turn that on and off mid-meeting, if you forget to set that ahead of time, you click on that and it'll hit save chat, and you can save that as a notes file to your desktop. As far as mid-meeting saving the participants, that is the tricky one.
Yeah,
Where I am
don't-
not sure.
I don't know if you can do it in the mid-meeting. I'm hesitant to give you a full answer, but I imagine when I went back to look at a recording of my video, it was pretty cool because it had my name and what I was saying, and then if somebody asked a question, it changed their name. So I imagine if it's recording who's saying what, that there is a space to go to find who attended the meeting. I just don't know that right off the top of my head. Justine.
Okay, can you hear me? Good.
Yeah.
So you all have a slide or something that we're seeing. So we're not just seeing your face, we're seeing slides. How do you do that?
Okay, so that's a great question. I went to, I just made a Google slide, right? Or
Okay.
I say I, but really Carla is the brains behind this, and we collaborated on that. And so then what I did was I'm gonna stop sharing and I'll show you.
Okay.
Well, I guess you won't be able to see. I went and I clicked share screen, okay? And then I just chose to share my screen, okay? Let me actually show you. Now I can show you. I put this guy right here, share screen. And when I click share, then all I'm doing is I'm toggling back and forth between my internet browser and my Zoom meeting.
Okay.
Just right here. And so this is something I've created outside of the meeting, and now
Right.
I'm showing this. I do, in saying that, I keep to address this. Someone at the very beginning said, recording, how do I record myself? And a couple of questions that I've answered with multiple teachers is I'm using Screencastify because I have to push out short video lessons to students on Sunday, right? And Screencastify is only limiting me to 5 minutes, okay? So while we need to keep our videos short, and that might be a if you need something longer, then this type of setting would be great for you. You just start a Zoom meeting, you share your screen, and then you click record, and then what you're doing is you're recording. The other great thing about this, when I share my screen, notice I have a whiteboard right here, and I can come in and I can show 3 + 2 = 5, and so that's recording in my meeting live. Okay.
Do you know that whiteboard feature, unfortunately, I can't send that whiteboard to a kid to continue to like doodle on, but you can save that and come back to that and work with that continuously if you want.
So let's see, Mindy, you asked if there's a screenshot. So if you, I don't think there's a built-in screenshot, but if you hit the print screen, key on your computer. It's the PRT SCR, and it's got the Wi-Fi like booster looking thing. If you touch that, it will create a screenshot of your screen, and then you can go and paste that into your favorite word processor.
What I meant by that was just like if you wanted to see who was there and you had a small number of participants, you could just take a screenshot, right?
Yes,
Absolutely.
Yeah, you could totally do that. But again, like we said at the beginning, we want to be cautious. I know we're excited using this with students. If you're gonna post it because you want to and you're just like so excited, cover their face with an emoji or something just to protect them. Maybe even scratch out their names. So feel free to do that. We want to be cautious about exactly what we're posting.
Bonnie, you have a question?
I did. When you're setting up the meeting, and maybe I'm just kind of thinking this the wrong way, you set up the meeting and it repeated every however many days. Do you know if that 9-digit code ever expires? I was just thinking, I want to set up one meeting for, let's say, my second period, and then it doesn't automatically repeat it, but I can just go in there and say, hey guys, go to this link today, or 3 days later, okay guys, go to this link today. Or do you know if it expires or not?
When you set it up, you'll see, even if you have repeating dates, it'll ask you for an end date. And when you do, that meeting link should expire. So after that end date, they won't be able to access that meeting any longer. So just make sure you do put an end date in there. And that way, if it's a recurring meeting for like the next 3 weeks, and then you want it to end after that, they won't be able to access it then.
And I would definitely be cautious on saving that that meeting ID and then just handing that out at a different date, because if they do happen to reuse that meeting ID, you would be joining in somebody else's meeting, and unless they had it password protected, it just I would definitely set that as a recurring meeting, and then only for as long as you've set it, that meeting ID will be yours.
All right,
Okay,
thanks.
a couple more questions and then we'll kind of wrap things up. And then if you guys want to stay and ask additional questions after, we can do that. Taylor, you had a question? Here, hold on, let me unmute you.
Oh,
Go ahead.
okay. I wanted to use a share screen. So I want to write on my iPad. So I clicked on it and it didn't find it at home. So one of my teachers said it will be found when I go to school. So I went to school this morning and I was able to connect to my iPad, and whatever I write on here will be shared. But when I came back home, the connection was lost again. So it could be my personal internet issue. I don't know why. I was able to write on my iPad, and like I could do a math problem on here and I could share it if I host a meeting, but I can't do it at home. I don't know why it works at school and it doesn't work here.
So another tool, and I'm not sure if you are familiar with Air Server, which takes your iPad. It takes your iPad or your phone, and it connects it to the screen. A lot of our schools may be using that for like a document camera, but if you're using a whiteboard feature on your iPad and you're projecting it onto your Zoom or onto your computer, you can then show that as your whiteboard in your meeting.
I can use whiteboard.
Yeah.
I just cannot connect my iPad.
Interesting.
I was able to do it at school.
I would say that's probably something that you might want to submit a help desk for, and they could probably try to help troubleshoot that with you, since it seems like that's related to when you're on and off the network.
Okay. Help desk?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I'll do that.
Alicia, Alicia, you said I can't find the hand, only the thumbs up and waving. When you click on participants, if you click on that, then you will find the raise hand button.
All right, Jeremy, do you want to show the last part of that slideshow real quick, and we'll kind of wrap up for anybody who needs to get going. I know some people have meetings
Absolutely.
at 3. So we do have some additional resources here on the slideshow. So if you have not accessed that tinyurl.com/NISD Zoom, do be sure to access that. There are some ideas, some tips and tricks, some more kind of getting started videos that Zoom has put out that will help you as you're using Zoom. And then, of course, if there is anything we have not answered that we can't answer after this, or that those resources don't answer, feel free to reach out to your campus instructional technologist. We've all used Zoom quite a bit, especially this past week or two. So we would love to sit down and help you if you need additional help with it.
Absolutely. And one last thing, I would, if you have not already, I would bookmark this remote learning webinars to your computer, so that way you can go back and when they are recorded webinars, you will click on that maroon link up in the top or even down here at the bottom, okay? And like Carla said, feel free to reach out to us if you need anything at all.
Well, and we're going to stick around if you guys have questions, but if you need to leave the meeting, feel free. You're not going to offend us at all. And we appreciate you being here with us today to learn a little bit more.
Yeah, thank
Alicia,
you.
did you have another question?
In the chat, where are those?
Say that
again.
The 3, I'm sorry, the 3 dots. Wait, is that up there with more? Is that where that is?
So the chat down here, next, right by where you can type, you can click chat, the 3 dots, and then you have the option right now to save the chat.
Okay. And so that just comes up. How does that come up? Like,
so as the host, how does the chat come up? If you, let me close this. If you click on the chat box here, it'll come up full screen unless I also have my participants up, and then the participants go up at the top and the chat comes down here at the bottom.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
All right.
Any other questions? Okay. All right. Well, thank you for your time. I'm going to go ahead and end the meeting, and it'll kick you all out. But we appreciate you spending this last hour with us.
And again, feel free to contact us or your campus instructional technologist if you need anything. Thank you all.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.